Good afternoon. I'm Russell Wooldridge of DRI International, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the latest in our ongoing series of webinars. With these presentations, our goal is to advance the knowledge and understanding of our certifications and training programs. Today's webinar, Business Continuity Meets Risk Management, Building Bridges and Adding Value, will explore the intersection between two key disciplines, business continuity and risk management. During today's session, we'll be hearing from a number of subject matter experts who have decades of experience. We'll cover the BC-RM relationship within organizations, how BC professionals can add value to risk programs, and how to best interact with your risk counterparts. You'll also learn about DRI's new Risk Management for Business Continuity Professionals training and the associated certification. Our speakers today are Randy Jouben, Director of Risk Management at Five Guys Enterprises, LLC, Lou Drapeau, Director of Risk Management at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, and Drew Buchanan, Threat Analyst and Risk Management SME for Bowhead Systems Management. Additionally, DRI International Senior Director of Operations Tracy O'Neill is with us to contribute to today's program. I'm sure you already have many questions in mind for these speakers, and we welcome all of them. Please use the question box, in most cases, at the bottom of your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Simply type in your question at any time during the presentation, and we will answer as many of them as possible when Tracy, Drew, and I return for the question and answer portion of our webinar. Now, let's hear from our experts in the field of risk management. First up is Randy Jouben, Director of Risk Management at Five Guys Enterprises, LLC, headquartered in Lurton, Virginia. Randy is responsible for protecting the tangible, intangible, and tasty assets of the organization. He has a diverse risk management background with over 26 years of experience, from working for insurance companies such as Prudential and American International Group to consulting, and risk management positions with prominent nonprofits such as the American Red Cross and the Catholic Diocese of Arlington, Virginia. Randy is involved in many professional organizations, including the Risk and Insurance Management Society, or RIMS, where he is on the local chapter board of directors, as well as a member of the National External Affairs Committee. He also serves as chairman of the Professional Development Committee for DRI International. He earned a BA in Political Science from Seton Hall University and a BS in Risk Management and Insurance from Excelsior College. And he holds many industry certifications in risk management, business continuity, and corporate compliance. Randy is a CBCP. So, Randy, please share with us your thoughts on the convergence of risk management and business continuity.
Thank you, Russell. What I've noticed as a risk management professional is as the traditional risk management model shifts into an enterprise risk management model, there's more and more need for a convergence between the risk management staff and the business continuity staff. Business continuity professionals are very familiar with the major sector of what risk managers do, because the risk analysis and the business impact analysis have many of the same elements, although the BIA may be looking at terrorism and computer-related. There really is a need to look over the entire spectrum of risk for both operational, reputational, and strategic risk, not only to mitigate that risk, but to look for opportunities to advance the company. Because as we take on more risk, we see more opportunity. And if we manage it right between the two disciplines, then obviously the company is getting a better product, a better service, and making a higher profit or seeking their mission if you're talking about the public sector better. A lot of people think this goes under the umbrella of governance, risk, and compliance, which in some aspects it does, and it really doesn't matter who is controlling the shop, whether it's the risk professional or the business continuity professional, or if it's someone who has the role of chief risk officer. I think someone who comes from either discipline or even from an IT audit or other governance compliance background could manage the role just as well. What's important is that they understand the risk models and the processes to quantitate the risk and also understand the various treatments. Of course, we're going to look for some of our standard treatments in risk mitigation, whether we're segregating the risk, we're going back to the old IT, hot, cold, storage, and off-site. But once we get these computers up and running and we've built that resilient system, the risk manager is very important to work with the business continuity professional to get the people at the desks, to get the rest of the operation up and running. And I think as business continuity people kind of look over the cubicles to see what the risk people are doing and to get a better understanding, it's going to make their overall business continuity plan better. For example, if we look at your standard business interruption coverage, which is probably the extent most business continuity professionals know about insurance, they don't realize that a lot of times these policies have something which is called an expediting expense. And we also have vendor endorsements. So essentially, we don't want to get back our income for the actual time we were down. We want to use the expediting expense and the vendor agreements to get back up and running, because we suffer a reputational loss by not being open, not being operating. And from a strategic point of view, especially if you're in the restaurant industry, if you're the first restaurant to open up after a disaster or even a mild event that caused an interruption, and you're open before your customers, you're building new customers, you're building new relationships. You know, when you beat your competitor to open your doors, you're returning to normalcy, and the public's going to remember that well beyond the disaster or the incident. And that's one of the things where business continuity and risk management starts branching into the strategic risk management. I think also when the business continuity professional and the risk management professional put their heads together, they can do a better job of preventing and mitigating future losses. They can look at the losses that have happened, do after-action reports once the return to normalcy to figure out how we can make the plan better for the future. And especially when it comes to monitoring and reporting back to upper management, this is really where many hands make the load lighter. If many people in the trenches, the risk management, the business continuity, the IT folks, the audit folks, if they see the same things and they're all coming to the same conclusions, upper management's going to realize that there's probably something to this, and then they're going to put money to solve those problems long term. I think by DRI International branching out and providing risk management training, it's a perfect marriage between the two disciplines. There's a lot of different certification programs. I have a lot of different certifications. I don't see a business continuity professional jumping into an associate in risk management program, 3 classes, all or 3 college credits, probably 15 hours a week. That's really a lot for a business continuity professional to jump into without having at least a fundamental understanding of risk. So by DRI International offering this course, it's a nice bridge between the two disciplines. I believe the course and the way it's structured has enough content to cover all the broad areas of risk management and what it does, but it doesn't go overboard and try and make them a risk management professional. So I'm really looking forward to this course, and I think the students will be too. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Our next speaker is Lou Drapeau. Lou is Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors for DRI International. He's been a member of the board since 2007. He is also a past president of RIMS and is current Director of Risk Management at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, a position he has held since November 1st, 2003. Prior to that, he was the risk manager for the Bud Company, ThyssenKrupp USA in Troy, Michigan, for 22 years. The Bud Company is a wholly owned subsidiary of ThyssenKrupp AG of Germany. He received his BS degree from Western Michigan University, an MBA from Eastern Michigan University, and an ARM certification from the Insurance Institute of America. Lou, you've been known to say that we really can't even think about business continuity without considering risk management. Why is that?
Thanks, Russell. The recent push to coordinate the activities of risk management and business continuity management is because risk management and business continuity have always been joined at the hip, so to speak, in my mind. It's almost impossible to have a discussion about business continuity without at least the mention of risk management. While risk management mitigates the causes and business continuity deals with the effects, both end up dealing with the same causal relationship. For example, Risk management, designing a property insurance program that uses loss prevention to mitigate risk and also provides adequate coverage, i.e. business interruption insurance, to get the business back into business if the loss occurs. And both risk management and business continuity management are working on these issues. The concept of enterprise risk management has had an important effect on business continuity. ERM has broadened the purview of risk management to include both the pure risk issues, only risk of loss, no chance of gain, and the speculative risk issues, chance of gain or loss. This brings risk management and business continuity into much closer proximity in order to assure that the business can continue delivering its product or service to its customers. A short definition of ERM is enterprise risk management is intended to cover risk management in the broadest possible terms, encompassing all forms of risk management activity across the entire organization. There are several steps to the risk management process. The first step is the organizational context in which we are going to operate. Where is the risk management function located within the organization? The next step is the risk identification step. That is, finding the risks that pertain to your particular organization. Next is risk assessment. And what this step does is determine the magnitude of the risk. Next is the risk evaluation, the impact on your particular organization. For instance, the impact of earthquake would be different in Illinois or Kentucky than it is in California. The next step is the risk treatment. How are we going to deal with the particular risks that we have identified? The next step is to monitor, review, and correct the chosen risk treatments so that we can tweak things that we have done to make them work better. And the last step is to communicate these risk treatments to the entire organization. And then we start the process all over again. The risk management process is a continuous process. One of the tools that risk managers use is a risk map, or sometimes called a heat map. It is basically a graph of all of the risk issues of an organization based on frequency and severity in order to determine which risks are most important to deal with first. A useful tool for risk management and business continuity management in order to see what risks are more likely to cause severe damage and to prepare for them accordingly. Some would argue that the goal of risk management is to minimize or eliminate risk. But perhaps in the ERM world, a better definition would be that the goal of good risk management is not to minimize risk, but to achieve the best balance of risks and opportunities. There are risks in everything we do, and we need to determine how much risk we are willing to take in order to take advantage of a particular opportunity.
Thank you, Lou. And now let's hear from Drew Buchanan, Threat Analyst and Risk Management SME for Bowhead Systems Management. Drew is a U.S. Marine veteran and a 23-year veteran of all hazards threat analysis and risk management. He has led risk and threat assessment teams supporting missions for the Secretary of Defense, the White House, and a variety of other government agencies. In support of the Department of Defense, he led threat and vulnerability analysis projects in the categories of cyber threats, terrorism, insider threats, CBRNE threats, and critical infrastructure interdependencies. Drew also developed a variety of analysis tools, including the Advanced Analytical Risk Management Toolkit and the MEF Risk Aggregate Tool in support of mission planners. In 2013, he was given the Secretary of Defense Award for Excellence for his contributions in risk management. Drew carries both the CBC and CBCV designations from DRI International. Welcome, Drew. Please share your thoughts on today's topic and the risk management course you helped to develop.
Thank you, Russell. The Business Continuity Risk Management course came about as a result of a demand from students and other business continuity practitioners who've attended DRI training. They desired a more in-depth and practical learning experience. After a series of meetings between DRI senior leadership and risk management thought leaders from Bowhead, the RIMLY 2000 course was developed to provide more of a deep dive into the area of risk evaluation and controls. So that's how this came about. I tell you, anyone who's performed risk assessments or risk management duties could probably give you a different answer based upon their own personal experience. I've been doing this for about 23 years, and I personally believe the greatest challenges have nothing to do with technology. They're more programmatic in nature. Just to rattle off a few, I think by far the greatest challenge has to be the lack of leadership involvement. If you do not gain leadership approval, your risk management program and your business continuity program is going to fail. You might have a senior leader who is involved in the initial phases of the risk management program, but is less involved as it gets started. Hey, that's your job as a risk manager, or that's your job as a business continuity planner. That's why I hired you. You might hear something like that, but in reality, without their continuous involvement, you're going to see a great deal of confusion within the organization. See, leadership includes risk ownership, risk tolerance, thoughts on risk prioritization, delegations of authority, roles, responsibilities, and most importantly, timely decision-making on the use of resources. So without their steady involvement, you're not going to have that clarity. And most important, timely decision-making is needed from leadership. Without that, you're going to have prolonged risk exposure. So even if they're involved, if you can't provide them the analysis and the planning guidance needed to make a timely decision, then you're going to be stuck with that risk longer than you need to. And unfortunately, that results in a lot of undesirable events. I think there's a lot more to this question here. After that, I would say the lack of resources. With the current economy, and every company is trying to find ways to afford their operations and still make a profit. And this thing called risk management usually is thought of as an external process that requires extra money, and sometimes it's thought of as a nuisance. Like I tell you, when risk management is used as a part of the normal business process, you not only have those resources, but you have a better return on investment overall and better quality of your services. So without resources, though, the risk management program is going to fail. I've seen time and time again where you've done a great job at analyzing risk, and you have these impressive reports, and then it sits on the shelf because we don't have any money to fix this problem now. And I got to tell you also that, it's okay to get leadership buy-in, but the evidence of leadership buy-in is manifested through resources. Without those resources, and resources means more than money. It includes subject matter expertise. It includes data. It may include software services. It may include vendor agreements. There's a lot that goes into this. But without their commitment, you can't manage risk. To keep it short, I would say another challenge within the private and public sector is a lack of situational awareness of the threat that have the potential to harm operations. There's often a lack of understanding for the kinds of threats that are out there that can harm your business. 80% of all security incidents, especially cybersecurity, are as a result of a failure to address known vulnerabilities. Now, why is that? It implies a lack of due diligence on the part of the organization to identify these vulnerabilities, even though the organization is fine for a while. Some kind of event happens. Maybe their networks are hacked, or maybe there's a data breach. Maybe there's a natural disaster where there wasn't enough planning involved to reduce those risk exposures. But without the proper situational awareness of risk to the organization, you're going to have a great deal of uncertainty. And those are just a few. There are several others. But from my perspective, the things that I've lived through, those key areas tend to be on the top of the list. You have to appreciate what the business continuity field represents. You have a very diverse range of subject matter experts that are involved in business continuity efforts. So the topic of risk management touches many different areas. I tell you, this course is great for anyone who's willing to learn, quite honestly. But it could include novice and experienced business continuity professionals. who just want a lot more detailed instruction into how to assess and manage risk. It could be business continuity planners who are specifically responsible for conducting risk assessments. Anyone who's interested in learning how to implement risk management frameworks such as NIST standards. The course actually aligns nicely with ISO 31000, federal continuity directives, and other industry best practices. The course could be valuable for critical infrastructure analysts, threat analysts, supply chain analysts, and especially for those in a management position who are responsible for risk decision making. I think this course is very valuable for them as well. I can promise you this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. Anyone who's attending this course is going to be very busy and challenged throughout. We've organized the course by 4 primary modules. So you'll have key blocks of instruction in governance and compliance, risk models and processes. We'll have a block on qualitative and quantitative methods. Yes, there's going to be a little math involved there. How to identify risk. The variables within risk are threat, vulnerability, and impact. How to handle and manage risk, and as well as monitoring reporting. If you do in each phase of the course, the students are going to be required to demonstrate their knowledge in a practical exercise. And I think we're going to have at least 7 practical exercises in this course. So once again, this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. It's going to be very hands-on and practical. We'll have different undesirable event scenarios. Part of the course also includes the performance of a mock risk assessment. So that's always a great time, and the students will have a lot of fun looking at the different kinds of risk to the organization that's evaluated in the course. So it's going to be very hands-on. Lastly, as we're doing this, they're going to be using this newly developed thing called DRI Risk Management Toolbox. It's a series of assessment tools that the students will be using to identify risk and report risk and track risk mitigation over time against schedules and budgets and that kind of thing. So it's coming with its own unique toolbox as well. And I think the greatest expectation here is, the students should be ready to be challenged and to learn. It's going to be a good time.
And now for our final speaker today. Everyone knows DRI's Tracy O'Neill. No one knows more about DRI certifications and that process than she does. And she's here to tell us a little bit about DRI's new risk management certifications. Tracy?
Thank you, Russell. We will be offering 2 levels of certification. Our first level of certification is our Associate Business Continuity Risk Management. This certification is for those that have less than 2 years of experience and have some knowledge in risk management planning, as they have not yet acquired a great deal of experience in the field. The application fee for this level will be $200. To maintain the ABCRM certification, you are required to pay an annual maintenance fee. Our second level of certification is our Certified Business Continuity Risk Management. This certification is for those that have 2 or more years experience. The CBCRM is designed for business continuity professionals who have a specialized background in risk management. The certification validates that the level of knowledge and experience required implementing and managing a business continuity risk management program. The application fee for this level will be $400. To maintain the CBCRM, certification carries 2 requirements: an annual maintenance fee, as well as continuing education activity points. Holding a DRI certification not only adds value to the professional, it adds value to your organization. Certification adds prestige to your organization and its employees. By publicizing employee certification, you are promoting your organization as forward-thinking and committed to professional development in key areas. Posing the Certified Benefits Professional designation gives you an edge in today's competitive world. Certification signifies that you are an expert in your field. It gives you and your employer confidence in your job skills. It also provides career opportunity and higher wages. We have seen a growth in organizations that are requiring their employees to hold a DRI certification.
Thanks, Tracy. Now, let's get to that question and answer session. Tracy, Drew, and I are going to be more than happy to answer as many questions as we can in as much time as we've got left. So let's go to the first question.
Okay, Drew, let's see. I think the first one is going to be for you today. This is a BCRM-focused course that you're talking about for risk management? Is that risk management going to be at an operational level, or is it a strategic enterprise risk management?
Okay, that's a great question, Russell. What I'd like to do before answering that question is to kind of echo my colleague Lou Drapeau's comments about enterprise risk management. At that level, you're covering a full spectrum of risk, to put it simply. And from my perspective, the primary goal of risk management is to reduce organizational uncertainty. So if you're only focusing on operational level risk reduction, you only have a fraction of, you're only managing a fraction of organizational uncertainty. And so while the course does touch on enterprise risk management, we touch on a little bit of strategic risk management. We will spend a lot of time in operational risk management because that's where a lot of the bridging between business continuity and risk management field occurs. But we will touch on those other categories as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Another question we've got in a similar vein is do you recommend that business continuity managers reach out to the industry or the RM bodies in their community that it operates in to build cohesive and cohesive plans, strengthen the existing plans, and help them sell BCP and RM to the company?
That's an easy one, Russell. Absolutely. Listen, gaining situational awareness of threats requires a lot of creativity. It requires a lot of coordination, and your ability to reach out to others who are exposed to the same threats is critical. And listen, there's a lot of good. The federal government is starting to get smart on this subject. They realize that private and public sector entities face the same common challenges, and so there's a lot of good working groups to join. I would visit the FBI website that deals with critical infrastructure and key resource. They cover basically every sector that you can imagine, and it's a free membership. You can get really good, I won't say real-time situational awareness of threats, but they do send out emails. For instance, I'll give you an example. We just recently received an email from FBI that alerted our company about a botnet concern, and within that alert, they gave us a lot of IP addresses and websites that we should block, and that was very beneficial for reducing the risk exposure to our organization. So I love that question. That's a great one. Please reach out to your local community and the Fed resources as well, because there's a lot of things out there you can do. FEMA is also a good resource. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. Tracy, the next question, actually it's 3 or 4 questions. We've had a bunch of folks ask the same question, the same vein. There are folks that carry the ARM certification, and they also have CBCP. What would you recommend as far as which level of certification that they should pursue, and what can be combined?
If somebody holds the ARM certification, depending on their level of experience, so the ARM is an associate level. So if they've gained more experience for 2 years, then I would definitely recommend going for our certified level. And such as in combining, I mean, if they want to hold 2 levels of certification, such as the CBCP, as well as the associate level or certified level of the risk management, they can do so. They can carry both certification levels. If somebody is going for, if the question of it is if they're going to go for a certified level for the risk management, they will not get a reference bypass. It'll be a separate certification because it is designed for the risk management.
Okay. Drew, you You've scared a bunch of people. I'm going to warn you already. I think our next biggest question that we've gotten today is, you said math? Can you explain what you talked about in this new RMCLE 2000 course? It's going to have math involved. What does that mean exactly, math?
Okay, let me put everybody else at ease a little bit. This is not a math class, but any good risk management program should have a mixture of qualitative and quantitative analysis processes. So the course is going to try to find the right balance. We're going to teach some of the more common ones. For instance, how do you use joint probability analysis, fault tree analysis? How do you aggregate risk? These are all important things. They do require a little bit of math, but annualized loss expectancy. It's not hard math, and we promise we'll work closely during the practical exercises. Everyone will know a little bit more about math if you don't already know these things, and but we're not just focusing on math. We're focusing on risk management. And listen, and from my experience, the qualitative risk management is more challenging. If it's easily quantified, it's easy to measure risk reduction. But some of the more difficult risk management challenges have to do with qualitative, because you can't always measure those, or they're not easily measured, rather. So anyway, I hope that sets everybody at ease. I do want to reach back. I forgot to mention one thing, Russell, in the previous question.
Please.
I couldn't remember the website, but now I remember it. Check out FBI's InfraGard services. You can sign up based upon your specific industry. They have good resources for information sharing for banking, energy sector, anything related to critical infrastructure, water sector, you name it, it's out there. And those are good venues for information sharing.
Thanks for that, Drew. Okay, let's see. The assumption, there seems to be an assumption that's made. One of our people has asked this question. There seems to be an assumption of having a robust ERM program in place. If a company is lacking a formal enterprise risk management, where would a BC practitioner look to find existing risks?
Okay, I think, and this is a great question, Russell, because if you're starting from scratch, where do I begin? And actually, you might be surprised by this answer. You're in better shape than a lot of other organizations because you can do it the right way. Because there's a lot of industry best practices out there. I want to give a call out to RIMS. They have good resources out there to understand enterprise risk management, and there's other best practice principles they can use. As I mentioned, or I think I mentioned at least a little bit earlier on, this course does align nicely with ISO 31000. So I think this is a good place to start. But more importantly, one of the things that I think is a little bit of a challenge within organizations is the lack of understanding of terminology. If you don't have unity in terminology, you're going to have problems. And I know that sounds simplistic, but we have to understand what risk truly is. And if I'm calling something a risk and somebody else is calling it a vulnerability, and we're not on the same sheet of music, we're going to have problems across the organization. And so anyway, there's a lot of good resources out there. This course kind of touches on a lot of those, and the student would be properly equipped to go back and start something from scratch if needed. So anyway, that's my thought there. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, next question. How do we leverage BIA and risk analysis when we lack the information to perform a complete or accurate risk analysis?
You're going to have a lot of difficulty. I'll just keep it simple there. But I will say something about data, because and I hope we touched on this a little bit in my earlier comments. But the lack of data, having access to the right data, is a resource in and of itself. Resources aren't just money; they're subject matter expertise, they're information. And if you don't have the proper data, you're going to live with organizational uncertainty, which is a key goal of risk management. And so you need leadership involvement. If you do not have leadership involvement within your risk management program, you're going to have difficulty gathering data and performing a business impact analysis, and you're most certainly going to have a lot of challenges identifying risk, because there's some politics involved with conducting a risk assessment. You know, you're asking people hard questions about vulnerabilities, and maybe for job security reasons, they may not want to share that information. So you're going to have to have a strong leadership presence in your organization. Get your leaders involved, and I'm sure that you can help bridge that data gap. Hope that answers your question.
Tracy, we're going to come back to you with a certification question. Do you have to have an ABCP or a CBCP before you can apply for this new BCRM certification?
No, you do not. You just have to, if you do not have enough experience, you can apply for the associate level for the risk management, but you do not have to hold an ABCP or a CBCP.
Okay, and to follow on to that question would be for those of us who carry the CBCP certifications, but do not have lengthy RM backgrounds. What is I lost the question. Excuse me. For those who don't have lengthy RM backgrounds, which certification would you recommend first? And I'm assuming you're going to say that associate level.
Correct. If you do not have the experience, definitely apply for the associate risk manager level. And then once you gain the experience, then you can apply for the certified level.
Okay, back to some more technical questions. Drew, what do you recommend, or where do you recommend young professionals who are fresh out of college cut their teeth in business continuity and risk management?
That's a great question. I think starting out as an analyst is a good place. There are a lot of depending on what the degree is in. I guess that the answer would vary, but for instance, if your degree is in information systems, maybe being part of a help desk, you'll have a little bit of trial by fire, and you'll understand some of the threats that are out there and how to mitigate those threats, and that'll give you some good hands-on. Also, I found that being involved in a risk management board is very educational. Even if it's just taking notes, even if it's just being the person who's presenting the slides and maybe managing the database, that's a great place to start as well. That's a great question, Russell. I wish I had a ton more time to talk about that, but I think participating as well in a business impact analysis is going to be critical. You'll learn a lot about the process. You'll learn a lot about the organizational assets and certain gaps. So there's a lot to that question. Again, it depends on the kind of degree you have, and there's a lot of places to get started because risk management is a very broad field, and so I hope that at least points you into a few good directions.
We've had one specific question about manufacturing. How would you say that this DRI BCRM program focuses? How much does it focus on an IT base as opposed to manufacturing operations or supply chain?
That's a great question. This is also just not an IT course. I will say this, that we will have a really good practical application, and we do cover supply chain risk management as well in the course. And so from a manufacturing perspective, it's funny they're asking that because one of the scenarios, and I don't want to cheat you guys too much, but one of the scenarios is dealing with a manufacturing disruption, and I think it will be a good learning experience. So we do cover supply chain risk management. Again, if you're not addressing organizational uncertainty at every level, you're not having a thorough risk assessment or a risk management program. I will say that those, manufacturing type risks are generally covered under operational risk management programs. So we are going to touch on that in a good amount of detail in the course.
Now I'm going to step in here as both the moderator and someone who can answer a question or two. We have gotten a number of questions about what course are you talking about? What is it going to entail? And right now, what we have done is we have created the risk management for business continuity for the business continuity professional. We're calling it RMLE 2000, and you can find a description of that course on our database. On our website. And you will find that course is being offered to the public on October 20th through the 24th. It is a 2000 level DRI training program, which means it will be 4 full days of instruction, and it will have a unique qualifying exam that goes directly with the risk management program. Tracy, can you speak to the qualifying exam in risk management?
Yes, the qualifying exam for the examination for the risk management, it will be 100 questions, multiple choice. The exam will be taken in class. We do not offer this as an exam only. You actually have to take the course to be able to take the exam, but the exam will be offered on the very last day of the class.
And we do hope to be able to offer our 501 level for this course. Eventually, we are rolling this out as a full training program because it is full of important information, and we want to make sure that the folks that enroll are getting a decent education in this matter. Okay, we got 2 more questions, and both of those are for Drew. How in depth does this course go in? Does it cover the concept of risk appetite?
Actually, risk appetite is a key block of instruction within the course. And this kind of goes back to one of the key success factors in your risk management program is leadership involvement. And in order to gain their participation, you also have to understand what their risk appetite is so that we're not wasting resources on risks that the organization is willing to tolerate. So we do go into some level of detail within the course. That topic, though, however, you could teach a whole week on just that topic because it involves a lot of variables. The background of the leadership or within your organization, maybe they've lived through a hurricane and they're very intolerant for those types of risks, whereas they may be more tolerant for cyber risks. Also, regulations have a lot to do with it. If an organization is afraid of an audit and they're afraid of $1 million fine for every hour that there's a disruption, they're going to be a lot less tolerant of that risk. So it does depend upon the regulations that govern your risk management program. It also has a lot to do with the risk management preference, and so that's a great question, and we will have a fair amount of time in the course that to discuss that topic. So hope that answers your question.
Well, here's this will be our last technical question for you, Drew. In order to reduce risks within an organization, how would you prioritize your initiatives? If through a BIA and funding was tight, what would your top 3 priorities be? What would you go after first?
That's actually a tough question, Russell, because it does depend on the organization, and it does depend on the mission or the essential functions that surround the organization. But I'll give you some big picture priorities. I think a good emphasis on quality control tends to mitigate a lot of uncertainty within the organization. It allows for continuous service improvement. It allows for the reporting of inefficiencies and the correction of inefficiencies at the business process level. And if you can affect quality at the business process level, that tends to work out a lot of kinks I think also careful attention, and a lot of organizations have a heavy dependency on information systems. And I think, concentrating on your cybersecurity efforts is going to be important. There are a lot of good standards out there to help with that. NIST comes to mind. So I think lastly, you've got to have a good portfolio of insurance policies, to reduce the cost impacts of the event. And I mean, you're only asking for 3. I mean, but a really good risk management program should have a very layered approach to mitigate risks. And budgets are a concern, and you have to focus somewhere. And that's the beauty of risk management. It allows you to reduce risk to an acceptable level and at an acceptable cost. And we're never going to be able to completely alleviate risk. We're always going to have residual risk. But as long as we've done due diligence and duty of care, we've done what we can do. And so, thanks for all these questions, Russell. I look forward to the course, and I appreciate your time.
Well, I thank you, Drew, and I thank you, Tracy, for your answers to our listeners' questions today. If you still have questions or need more information on some aspect of risk management or BCP that we didn't cover, or you want to schedule this course or other training for your team or department, please give us a call at 866-542-3744. Just a quick historical note, this event has set a record for our webinar series with over 1,382 people registering for this program today. Thanks for supporting this effort. Thanks to Randy, Lou, and Drew for their expertise as well. A recording of this and all our webinars is posted on MyDRI. I'm Russell Wooldridge, and this webinar has been a production of DRI International, 2014, all rights reserved. Thank you for your attention.